Okay, happy Monday, you guys. Here we are again. It's night, so I'm up and I'm about to start my week. Had to switch some vehicles out, or not out, but around, so that others can, the other one can have maintenance. It's raining. It's been raining for a while. It's been really windy. So I got here a little earlier, about an hour and a half before I have to clock in, and so I could do my first video of the week. The only thing that I've really thought about is I've recently found this new channel, or new to me, channel called Sunday Cool, and they do, I guess they're Christians, and that's always good to hear and comforting to know that other people are, believers and everything, but they do all kinds of mysterious, crazy aliens and all that kind of stuff too, and that's how I came across them. And they did a episode on dogmen and mentioned all these stories from the far past about, well, not too far past, but Alexander the Great, and Saint Christopher apparently was a dog man, and then he was evangelized to and told the good news, and then he became a Christian, and then eventually went on to be transformed into a human instead of a dog man, and just a bunch of stories like that. Throughout history, the Egyptians had the dog-headed Anubis and all that, and there's throughout history, India, there apparently was an empire in distant India that they were all dogmen, or and Alexander the Great, all these sources recall having all these conflicts or coming across all these dogmen. And on the Sunday Cool show, they were all like, I've never heard of this. This is crazy to me. This is crazy, crazy, crazy. And what was interesting to me was that, or what stuck out to me and I found interesting because of the stuff that I listened to and all that. They didn't have any modern day stuff about the dogman. And that's ironic to me, because I came across this clip, and on the same day, or around the same time, Steve on his other channel, the Round Table of Knowledge, it's his backup channel, and he posts older stuff on there. And the one that he posted on there was an episode where he's it was about dogmen, and there was a couple about dogmen, but then there was this one story where the guy was I don't have any experiences to share, but I just want to comment on the dogman stories and all of this stuff. And he says something along the lines of these stories where the dogmen hate the Sasquatch, or they do what they do what the Sasquatch say, or don't like them and stuff like that, or they war against the Sasquatch, but they have the same powers as the Sasquatch. And I was pretty sure that the guy he was reading, I thought this is what he said as Steve's reading it, but he was saying in the email that to Steve was reading it, that he was referencing another email Steve had read about Dogman, because it happens. It's crazy how often these stories come to Steve about countless people who say they've had these eyewitnesses. They don't know each other. They're from all over creation, you know, and they're just writing in. They have these experiences. But Steve was like, sorry, let me back up. Like, I thought this guy was saying that he was referencing another email that Steve had read that had been sent into him, where this email had said or made it sound like there was collaboration of some sort between the Dogmen and Sasquatch, right? And I thought that's what the guy said, but after Steve finishes his email, and I mean, like, Steve reads all of them, so I mean, presumably he would know. So this was interesting to me, because Steve reads the email, and then, you know, usually, like, sometimes will he give his real 2 cents about something, or his opinion about whatever. Most of the time it's just like, okay, let's do the next one, and the next one, and the next one, okay? And, you know, they might say something at the end, but that's pretty much it. But he was, after he read the email, he was like, he's like, you know, what's interesting to me is, I wonder where these certain patterns, he's like, you know how we're always looking for patterns in these reports and stories, and he's like, certain patterns in reports and stories crop up where people will just insist on something, and then someone else will later, and then someone else will insist on that thing later, and it sort of becomes a pattern in a way that's much more like this guy saying, like, oh, this is just a thing. A Bigfoot and the Dogman, they don't like each other, but the Dogman has the same powers or whatever as the Sasquatch. It's starting to really come down now. But he's like, I've noticed that certain patterns like that, they don't come from, like, this was my experience, I had this happen to me, Dogman, right? The Dogman in general is a good pattern example. Like, countless people, thousands of people who don't know each other from all over, especially North America, have emailed Steve and been like, I had this experience with Dogman, there you go. And so, like, that pattern of that subject matter has cropped up organically from people's reporting their experiences. But Steve's like, what I've noticed is that some patterns do not originate like that. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he's like, some patterns seem to come out of the ether because somebody just insists on something is the way that they say it is, and then later on somebody will insist on that thing too, and then later on somebody will insist on it again, and insist and insist and insist, and they're not giving experiences like the other way. They're not giving experiences, they're not giving, like, these patterns are coming out from the word of mouth of people just saying their thoughts, or them saying that, like, hey, heard about this on this one channel, or I wonder if this can ever happen, or my thoughts on Bigfoot and Dogman, which are two things that obviously Steve is constantly receiving information on through first person, in real time, you know, reports. they'll be like, seems to me that this is how this is what. And so anyway, point being, that's another way that these like sort of patterns arise, right? And Steve's point is he's like, I totally accept the one kind, the organic kind, that's like a bunch of people who don't know each other, and essentially, why would they lie? They're just saying the thing they experience in the patterns that come out of those reports, of those experiences. But he doesn't see the other sort of patterns that crop up that don't come from first-person reports of experiences by people who don't know each other, and they're just talking, and somehow, some way, like, other people start talking about it, and they're all talking about it like it's an established thing. And he's like, I've never heard of one way or another I've never heard dogmen working for Sasquatch or stuff like that. He's like, I've never heard of that was another thing that the dude said in his email. Yeah, sorry, I'm remembering now. The dude goes, in this email he's referencing from the past that Steve apparently read, he's like, this dog man communicated telepathically, which is a Sabe, Sasquatch, Bigfoot thing. Telepathically communicated to this guy some way, somehow, that because the guy apparently shot the dog man and killed him. And so the guy was like, he got telepathically messaged, you killed my asset, or you removed my asset, or something like that. And according to this like person, this made it, he was like, this is a real coordinated thing, and blah, 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 and I think this, and this. And that's when Steve broke it down and was like, paraphrasing, like I said, like, there's different kinds of patterns that arise. I accept these, but I don't really accept these. And he's like, and the reason why I don't accept them is those patterns that get talked about like that and that crop up like that, and multiple people have said like, oh yeah, dogmen and Bigfoot, they're like, peas in a pod, or they have the same power, like stuff like that. He's like, I've never heard of, essentially this guy, sorry, I'm talking in circles, it comes back to me in stages, I'm slow. But this guy seemed to be alluding to this email, referencing this email that Steve apparently got. And in the email, he was saying how, like, he was alluding to the fact that people were controlling this dog man. The guy had killed it, and that's like, they taken the asset or whatever. And he was like, Steve's like, I've never heard of dogman working for people before. I've never heard of any human group like commanding or using the dogman for any sort of like military or attack mode, or military hit, or like anything like that. He's like, I've never heard of anything like that. And that's when he was like, there's different kinds of patterns that arise. There's I accept these, I don't accept these stuff that crops up like this. He's like, it's not in my as his eyes, it's not as legitimate as the other. And he was like, I wonder, he sort of asked the question, like, I wonder where that comes from. You know what I mean? He's like, we know that in this topic that we're being lied to and truth's being concealed from us. And that's across the NHI whole thing, whole spectrum. Is that information's being withheld and we're being lied to, and or things are being omitted that would like revolutionize knowledge, or whatever it is. But that's like a common theme throughout all that. But he's like, I wonder if we're deliberately being lied to and things are deliberately and intentionally being withheld from us, being concealed from us, etc., and all of that, if that's all happening. He's like, I wonder if any of these other patterns that arise from people just saying stuff enough, and it's not really firsthand reports from this happened to me. It's, well, I heard this, so, and he's like, he asked the question, he's like, are these people just parroting what they've been told? Like, do they think honestly and genuinely that this is the situation, or are they parroting something and repeating what they've been told, etc., like, but he's like, I wonder sort of where those patterns, where that kind of stuff comes from, because, and I think a lot of that is, I think it's a good way of going about these kinds of topics in the way Steve does, organic pattern recognition of things that people say that they've had firsthand experience of. I think that's a great way to figure your way through, right? I've said it multiple times, like, you would hope that a topic like this would be done like this by someone like Steve, who can't be bought and who can't be intimidated into doing whatever, and who's also not a nut job that's like, come on down and have a Bigfoot tour. My whole identity is wrapped up in a thing that I've never seen or experienced. Like, no, right? And it's, I think that my initial thoughts on this sort of thing happening that Steve is commenting on, these patterns that aren't organically created, and they come out of enough people just saying stuff. Like, I think what that is, I think that some people are liars. Some people just get a kick out of doing crap like that. Some people are assholes. On and on and on. Some of it must be at some level, shape, or form or percentage. Some of it must be intentional malinformation, right? By somebody that's intentionally motivated, gets a paycheck from the CIA, whoever it is, whatever they're doing. There must be some percentage of people deliberately putting out disinformation like that to muddy the water. There must be a certain amount of that. Just like in the alien stuff and the NHI stuff. There must be a certain percentage of liars and sociopaths and psychopaths and compulsive pathological liars and all that kind of stuff too. But I think that also what that is it's like, this is a human, as much as those are deliberate things and deliberate actions being taken by deliberate groups of people to some small percentage or another. I think also what that is that Steve's referring to is like an organically forming misinformation. It's the natural sort of problem of human communication and contact, especially at a mass level of such instantaneousness like the internet. People get excited. People identify with you or with the topic that you're doing or whatever, and they feel like connected to you and all that, and they get excited, they get passionate about stuff, and they start letting their thoughts flow and stuff like that because they love it, or they're like passionate about the subject, whatever it is, and the stuff starts to come out of thoughts that they have or considerations or theories and all that stuff. And people have the same thoughts, theories and stuff, across the board or whatever. And I think so a certain amount of this too is organically forming disinformation, because people have the same kind of, like, they can't but want to talk about it with you or talk about it with Steve, and they're like, I've had this thought a bunch of times and I'm just wondering if that's freaking true. And then someone else down the line says the same thing, not even because they didn't hear it, because they've had the same thoughts, and then somebody responds to those two and they're like, that's brilliant, I've never had those thoughts before, but those thoughts are great on that subject, and on and on. And it's like an organically occurring misinformation pattern that's like, we're like, how, like Steve asked in this question, like, how do you know these things? Where has this information come from? Where are your receipts? I don't know. I've never heard of what you're talking about. It's like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's like this organically forming, naturally occurring, like, telephone game of misinformation. It just builds on itself, and then suddenly, on down the line, eventually people are like, oh yeah, blah blah blah, Dogman and Bigfoot and all the rest, and somebody is like, a bunch of people are just like, oh yeah, and they just accept it right off the bat, whatever it is. Doesn't have to be crazy or insane or something nuts like Dogman and Sasquatch or aliens or something. It could be something about some product or some scandal or some information about some normal news thing. Doesn't matter. Like, it all can go like that. And this sort of, in the imperfection of just word to mouth to ear, you know, like verbal communication, human communication, like that, these things organically form and can't help but happen. So it's like, it's fantastic that Steve isn't buyable, that he's not wrapped up in like his Sasquatch identity, celebrity, and all the rest, because he can stop and be like, okay, hey now, and still be respectful and a good dude about it, and be like, okay, hey now, in total honesty, how do you know this? Where are your receipts? Why are you saying this? Where is this coming from? People have said this before, but not in the way that, like, is the norm here. Like, where is this coming from? Where has this been said or anything else? And he always tells these people, like, I'm open to, like, just email me. You know what I mean? Just email me. But he won't publicize won't read anybody's, you know, like, advertise anybody else's channels about any topic one way or another. Like, he won't. He's fair, and he's just like, simply like, hey, I'm not saying you're full of it, I'm not saying you're a liar, I'm not saying anything like that, or making a judgment call on what you're saying as in the way that it applies to this topic. But what I am saying is, this seems to be an inorganic pattern that's arisen, and I want to know, where did this come from? Why have you said this? Why do you think this? Where are your receipts? What has put you on to this? Where has it come from? Is it just a thing that enough people across time have said, and across enough channels have said, that you're just like saying it as you know, oh yeah, that's totally true? Or, you know what I mean? Or are you that 0.112% of the 2 CIA guys that are like, I'm gonna, you know, I'm trying to muddy the waters of the Sasquatch community or the internet people on the alien stuff, and I'm gonna write some comment, like, whatever it is, however unlikely it is, with the small percentages of anything, like, you know, where is this coming from? And I like that, because that is also fair. You can't just accept everything verbatim and like, oh yeah, that's right, you know. But like, now, just like Steve, when someone writes in and they're like, yeah, it took me like 3 months to write this and type this out because I'm a 77-year-old man who, when I was like, you know, 23 with my first wife, and we went camping in the woods, and I had this experience and this mind speak and etc., 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 Bigfoot. Like, no, I believe that person. Because, like Steve says, why in the heck would a 77-year-old man lie about something that supposedly happened decades and decades ago for no recognition? It's not like anyone's gonna bother looking up their name. There's no picture associated. There's not like no one's gonna look up or bother to look up the places that he's from. You know what I mean? Like, this is, why would he lie? He gets nothing from lying, but he gives this organic report of what happened to him personally, what happened to him, what he witnessed, what he saw, what he experienced, what his senses told him, what he perceived, and all of it. And I'm with Steve. Like, I'm like, what? Why should I not believe that person? I don't now. But also, like Steve says, I don't really feel too compelled to listen, believe, or not take with a huge, big rock of salt someone who just says, I think this stuff and this is the way that is. And it's just like, okay. And there's always some in the emails that Steve reads. There's always a portion of them, a percentage that are like that. People sharing their thoughts, what they think, their theories, their opinions, all kinds of stuff like that. And these inorganic, patterns sort of crop up out of those. And it's good to be like, hey, now, like, I accept this, I listen to these things. I don't accept right off the bat these other things. I'm gonna need further information. What are you talking about? Why is this being said this way? Prove up or it's not true. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if it doesn't have a first-hand account at the very least, if it doesn't have like nothing, just your random word and you're just like, repeating what you heard so-and-so say that happened on some channel. Like, that's not the same as Grandpa when he was 12 and the Sasquatch almost squished him with a boulder. You know what I mean? Like, in 1969. Like, that's just, those are two different things. And I respect Steve even more for pointing that out, being as solid as he is, and like being unbuyable and not allowing this crap of any NHI aspect, whether it's the aliens or Bigfoot or any of it. He's not gonna let it overtake his identity. He has his passions that are just as strong as his Bigfoot stuff. Like, he's Canadian and he's super passionate about his thoughts on the political and governmental situation up there, which I don't know a lot about, but he's super passionate about it and he really cares about his country. And that's great to see, because he reminds me of American, patriots who care a lot about their country. And I love America and I care a lot about this nation, and people like that got to stick together, because we can't just accept all these people here in America and across the world that just say that America's shit, you know what I mean, and that we're no good and that we're bad and stuff like that. That just ain't true. That just ain't true. And I also I'm a Christian. I have my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ in my heart, and I support Israel because the Jews are God's chosen people. Jesus Christ himself was a Jew. And I've asked him in my heart, and I support Israel. And that's just how I feel. I'm passionate about that kind of stuff. That's one thing that where me and Steve differ, right? Is he doesn't feel that way about the Israel conflict. And more power to him. He doesn't like the Ukraine conflict either. And more power to him. I highly respect Steve in on a whole lot of different ways, in a whole lot of levels. I think he's an absolute badass. I think he's an absolute, just solid, good man. And I respect him for all of his knowledge and everything he's done for his chosen topic, for the people that believe so highly in him involving that chosen topic. And I really thank him for everything that he's done, because he's done a whole lot for a whole lot of people that he'll never meet or know. And it's because he's trying to, as he would say, get his puzzle together, put his puzzle together, and he's gonna help as many people as he can, and that is, he's just a badass guy, and I really do admire him. And I also, it's not just the subject matter that I find fascinating as one aspect of the NHI, story and lore, whole spectrum of it and all that, but I also really like to watch Steve, because Steve is separated from all of this human stuff, all of the political and the governmental and all of the things that we deal with and interact with. Like, he's not subject to that. And so when he speaks and when he talks, the way he talks about stuff and all that, it's free. It's free, like he's just your friend. And I never had a friend that I agreed with everything under the sun with him on. I never had a friend that only would tell me things that I wanted to hear, that I thought and agreed to. I've never had a friend like that. That's not a friend anyway. And that's why I just really, I really am thankful for Steve. I'm just going to say it like I'm telling you. I'm really thankful to you. I think you do a fantastic job with how to hunt. Like, oh man, I would love to talk to you about like your thoughts on all this stuff, man. That would be so fascinating. So fascinating to hear what you think about certain things that I thought about, but all that aside, I just really appreciate how fair you try to be with your topic, but also to people that want to participate with your topic, with the that you've chosen, the topic you've chosen, and you're fair with it. You're fair with the people that want to be interact with that, and yet you're not going to blow a bunch of propaganda at people. You're not going to say a bunch of stuff that you don't believe in. You're not going to, just because somebody else did, you're not going to do these things. And you're also not going to stop from speaking just because what you're speaking about might get on some people's nerves. They might not like it or whatever. You're still going to do it. And whether I think the same way or not, like, it's just refreshing and a really positive experience on me, a good influence on me, to like listen to someone who communicates in such a free way, regardless of what he's talking about. Whether I think like he does or not, whether I agree with him or not, whether I have the exact opposite opinion as him or not. It's just really great to listen to someone communicate to you about anything, the Sasquatch, Sabe, Bigfoot, or any part of the NHI, or really any subject matter at all, really. These days and times, it's a great, awesome experience to be talked to in such a free way.
by a person that you can be like, not only is this a free way to communicate and a free way that I'm being spoken to, but this is also someone who I can trust because they're free enough in themselves to communicate this way. Steve's not going to tell you shit that he doesn't think. And if he doesn't think something and he thinks something is a certain way, he's not going to hesitate to tell you. He's not going to hesitate to put it out there, his feelings. Regardless of how you feel about it or not. He's going to share it. He's going to not going to sugarcoat. He's going to share with you whatever the topic is, from the one he's chosen to whatever the topic is, like the Canadian government or farmers or, American patriots, warriors, veterans, whatever it is. Like, he's going to tell you straight, and you trust in that. And I respect him for it. And I thank you, Steve, for being that way, because it's so great to have a constant influence like that, a certain source of information that I take in on a regular basis, that no matter what you're talking about, Steve, whether it's Bigfoot or Canada or whatever it is, the way you speak, the way you communicate, it makes, no matter what the subject is, the way you communicate makes me feel more sane. More sane than certainly listening to the news or the government, our government employees of the Biden administration, or any legacy, mainstream accepted thing, pretty much. And it's just great to be communicated with on any subject in such a free way. And so, I really hope that this whole NHI stuff is a spectrum, because it'll be good if it is, and I'm right on that. It'll be good to know that someone like Steve, Steve will have a node of influence in how this stuff is communicated, but also taken in. What I mean by that is, Steve has a massive community, millions of views all the time. His channel has always done well, and he has never said subscribe or blah blah blah, anything, nothing. Like, his channel's always had a huge ever-growing community. And what I hope is that if this whole NHI is a spectrum story, for one, but for two, if it is a spectrum story and we start to find out things as we go along about the NHI spectrum story, and there things are actually elements of stuff that are actually disclosed, or AI tells us whatever it is comforting to me to know that Steve's huge community in the NHI spectrum story will hopefully have a little of Steve rubbed off on them. So when it comes to other aspects of this spectrum story of NHI, and some, let's just call them, some nefariously motivated, not so honest, has an intentional purpose behind what they share and all the rest kind of person, I would hope that enough of Steve and the way he communicates in the honest and free way that he does, and the way that he thinks and curates his chosen topic of Sasquatch, I hope that enough of him rubs off on that community of his, and when these other aspects of the NHI story come into focus, if they ever do, whether by catastrophic or government or whatever. However, I hope that enough of Steve is rubbed off on his massive community, so that when these elements do come about and these things do happen, if they do, if and when, you know that there's going to be a percentage of it, just like everything else, that's going to be absolute malignant, bad, bad, intentionally, purposefully not good to muddy the waters BS. And hopefully there'll be enough people in these NHI communities that, have come from Steve's angle into the whole thing, where they'll be like, no, hold on a second. I'm not just going to trust you, and I'm not going to allow this subject matter, however crazy and powerful and passionate it might get in some people. I'm not just going to take your word for it, and I'm not just going to be all affected by it in my way of my identity or personality or in my family or faith. I'm going to take what you say with a grain of salt, and I'm going to listen to sources that I feel are genuine and free thinking in how they communicate to me. And an element of that is not telling you constantly the stuff that you want to hear. I don't want to be told that I'm right all the time or exactly what I think all the time. If you are told and if you're told the honest truth as best as they know it, and it's regardless of your feelings in the matter, that person is good for you. And I hope that enough of those people that have had exposure to Steve and I'm sure there's others, have had enough exposure to these honest people that are, involved one way or another in this whole spectrum NHI story, that when the liars and the manipulators and the grifters and the sociopath, crazy asshole, criminal dickheads that are just trying to make a buck and mislead you, when those people come out, because it will be inevitable that some of them will, and I'm sure that especially in the alien UFO disclosure, UAP stuff, there's a lot of those. And I bet it would surprise us all how many of them we know by first name basis, right? And so, I hope that influences like Steve can help people be like, all right, now hold on. I'm going to go through this looking for genuine people that aren't just going to tell me what I want to hear or what sounds cool. They're going to give me what their honest thoughts are. They communicate with me freely. They're not afraid. They're not going to get canceled. They're not going to be pushed, aside by some arbitrary politician's feelings on the matter. They're just going to be, this is what it says. This is what we know. These are the elements of information we've been given. This is what it is. These are my thoughts on it. If you have different thoughts on it, contribute them. But don't just say a bunch of stuff. Preface it. These are my thoughts. This is what I've wondered before. This is what my theory is. You know what I mean? That's such a better way. And I hope that the UAP, UFO disclosure, NHI element and all this can learn from Steve and actors like that are in the, the other elements of the NHI. I really feel like, let me check the time here. Oh, I really feel like Ross Coulthart is another one that's a genuine person. That's, doing what he's doing for his own reasons and doing what he's doing for his own purposes and doing what he's doing to get the results that he's trying to get, right? And that sounds like I'm saying that it's all about him or he's doing all this for himself. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying Russ Coulthart's approach and the things that he's gone after, the things that he's chosen to talk about, and the ways that he has communicated 100 to America, especially in regards to a lot of our veterans that have not been treated well and that have had experiences and all the rest. Like, he's not going to say anything he's not prepared and ready to say, and he's going to say it what he's been told. He's always careful to say, what he doesn't know is fact, and that it's allegedly, if what I'm saying is true, all this kind of thing. It's like he allegedly, he follows the rules and he keeps it above board, no matter the subject matter, no matter who he's talking about or to. He keeps it fair. He keeps it straightforward. And he communicates straightforwardly to the United States and about the United States. And I mean, and he's another good one. You know what I mean? And I hope that people like him and like Steve can really have a good effect on these communities. Because if I'm right, and the NHI story is one big story with just a whole lot of different elements, we're going to need these genuine people who aren't just going to say, whatever they're told to say or parrot a bunch of crap or what. We need free communicators that are going to be like, look, this is what I found out. This would have been told. Here's the whole thing. Here's what I think. Take it or leave it. As Steve says after every email, take it or leave from it what you will. Next, you know what I mean? Like, Ross Coulthart, this is what I've been saying. If what I am saying is true, here you go. This is what I've been told. Like, these people are above board, and they seem to have a lot less agenda, a lot less manipulative. They don't seem like one of those. They don't seem like they're trying to grift and make a buck and cheapen something that is just because that's their angle to do so. They don't seem like that. They don't seem disingenuous. And I really admire both of those two for that. There's others, but I really admire those two for that. And I hope that they can have a good effect on their respective areas of expertise. And I hope that those communities of followers of that follow them on social media and all the platforms, I hope that the influence of them and how they go about things can rub off on those communities too, because I think people hunger for free communication in this politically correct time, but I think that they also they need that to know how they feel, to really know how they feel about something in their heart. You can't like, if you're just being lied to or told what you want to hear all the time, and you're not given a free communication, an honest, genuine perspective and honest, genuine information, this is how it is, as far as I know it, kind of style of communication. You can't know about how you feel about something in your heart, or in like the way Steve's always talking about. You can't follow your gut. Follow your gut. It's the best instinct you have. Like, but if the world's just filled with lies, it's that, you know what I mean? You won't know how you should. I mean, you probably still will. The spirit will speak to you. Your gut will still speak. I don't know if I believe this, but that's not the same. You know what I mean? That's not the same sort of way. That's it rescuing you and making you want to pull back. I'm saying that those same effects in response to someone like Steve or Ross Coulthart, that is like, as far as I know, the information says this. It makes me feel this way, and I think thus and so. These are my sources. Take it for what you will, or leave it. I really hope that they can become the norm, and that I really hope that that can become the predominant way of getting through these. Because again, I've said this a lot, everything is now paralleling AI, for whatever that means is gonna mean or not. All of the NHI stuff is paralleling AI. And so everything seems to be on a lot faster track now in a whole lot of ways. And just before I go, one more thing. In relation to communicating this and all the and having good sources of free communication that aren't just going to tell you what you want to hear, what sounds cool, and that are genuine and honest. Tucker Carlson, at one point or another, had someone that he talked to about the UFO stuff, and he said it was supernatural, and meaning above natural plane of existence, or whatever else, and essentially said that he thinks what we're seeing or what is experienced, the NHI thing, is spiritual in nature, and that it's a very, very old story, is basically all he said. I got no issue with that. Whatever. That doesn't bother me for him to think that, or I don't, how should I know he's wrong? I don't. However, one thing he said, and I was like, that is the kind of communication, that free communication I'm talking about right there, is that in that segment or interview or whoever podcast that he was talking to, whoever he was talking to when he was talking about that, he goes, the one thing that's predominates science and the secular world and all of the whole human-based earth construct system, right? He's like, how did he say it? He goes, sorry, I just went blank. He goes, the one thing that really matters to all of this human construct world and all this system, the one thing that they truly, truly, truly do not want you to consider or think about or know of or have exposure to or any of the above, the one thing that they discount above all else, and this is absolutely true, and it resonates big time with me, and as honest and genuine free communication from Tucker Carlson, regardless of how you think about how he communicates normally or whatever he communicates about, and you love him or hate him, whatever, that when he said this, I was like, yes, that is absolutely the truth. He goes, the predominant thing about all these institutions and all the system and all of the human construct world, the one thing about all of it that the predominant, they do not want you to have any interaction with at all. They want to discount it completely, is the supernatural. He's like, there, according to all the science and all the people and all the stuff, he's like, a lot of churches, all of the governments, and on and on and on, and all of these human bodies and institutions, they do not want you believing in anything supernatural. There's no such thing. There's none of this. There's none of that. Like, and they don't, like, whatever they got to take down in order to say that that's not possible and that doesn't really happen, and all the rest. Whether Jesus didn't rise from the dead, there's no such thing as God. Whatever aspect of any of it, they want to discount and say that it's all. They want you to discount it all and say that it's all lies, and on and on and on. It's the supernatural stuff. He is absolutely exactly right about that. And I have never understood, I've never thought this consciously, but I've just never understood why the government and school or any human institution feels so compelled, has felt so compelled over the course of my life and every, all the American generations' lives and of the world and et cetera, et cetera. Why has it been such an important thing that we discount and don't have anything to do with, saying that that supernatural anything is possible? Why have they ever cared that much? Why have anything to say about it at all? Why has it always been so important to these bodies that we just reject all that out of hand? Like, just out of hat, just reject it all. I've never understood that. And I never really clicked until I heard Doug Carlson say that. And I'm like, that is absolutely the case. Why? Sort of the same kind of thing with what I was saying. Steve was, asking, he's like, what do these patterns that aren't organic come from? And it's just, makes you think, yo. Anyway, all right, well, I've talked y'all's ear off and I got to get in there now. God help us get through this week. God love y'all. Our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ be with y'all. Hope y'all sleep well and have a good week. Let's start this one off strong, y'all. All right. We'll talk to you next time.